Your mama is so short that you can see her legs on her driver's license. I'll be right in. I just have to I have to finish giving to the homeless. Okay, what's this? Your mama is so ugly. When she looked out the window, she got arrested for mooning. Oh no, that doesn't seem very nice. Your mama is so dumb. She stared at the orange juice for 30 minutes because it said to concentrate. Oh girl, I have done that. Honey, are you jumping on that trampoline with scissors? Okay, just a minute. I just need to read this little joke that my friend sent me. Your mama is so old. When I told her to act her age, she died. Your mother is so stupid. She got fired from the M&M factory for throwing out all the W's. Well, if you're that incompetent, you deserve to be fired. Your mama is so ugly that Hello Kitty said goodbye. Ooh, that is a burn. Your mama is so stupid, she thought that seaweed is something that fish smoke. Your mama is so old, she sat next to Moses in 3rd grade. Oh no, I certainly hope no one's feelings got hurt with that joke. Oh. Honey, sweetie, is that bleach? Is it bleach? Okay, well just don't spill it all over, okay? Just be careful with it. Yeah, if it gets close to your, okay. Just a minute, I got another little, yeah, I'll tell you this joke in just a minute, okay? Your mama is so ugly that her reflection, that her reflection said, I quit. Your mother is so ugly. When she came out of the haunted house, she had an application. Well, I certainly hope that they checked her references. Your mama is so stupid, she thinks a quarterback is a refund. Don't tell your kids about that, but that is, I am using that at the next Tupperware party.
Sycamore Creek, and happy Mother's Day! Hi, I'm Carolyn Snow, and I'm here with my mom tribe. We're going to lead you in worship this morning with a little bit of a topic on bitterness. Nancy, you're our teacher today. What can you tell us about bitterness?
I'm kind of bitter about it, so.
I know! Imagine being asked to preach on bitterness on Mother's Day.
Special.
All the same, we're so happy you're here. We have a little bit of a different worship service here at Sycamore Creek where you get to talk and share with the people around you. So don't be shy. Get up and talk to those around you as we have discussion questions. Speaking of our first discussion question, what's the most bitter or sour thing you've ever tasted? I know, you gotta think back. Think back on that while we lead you in Great Are You, Lord. join us and sing?
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. And all the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, our bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Just our voices. And all the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, his bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
All right. What's the most bitter or sour thing you've ever tasted?
Okay, if I'm honest, I can be totally honest and not offend anyone.
Yeah.
It's coffee. It's the nasty,
I'm
bitter
just gonna
thing
drink
I've ever
this
tasted.
with as much glee. Ready? Everybody take a big long sip.
I won't be offended.
Delicious.
Obviously, I don't like coffee either because I put stuff in my coffee.
Yeah, that's true, to take the bitterness out. So
Well, yeah.
it's a coping
yeah.
strategy.
It's definitely an acquired taste, and I think most bitter or sour things are. For me, it's olives.
Oh, yeah.
Super bitter, right? Super bitter. Not,
I
you know.
like them, though.
I love most sour and bitter food, but olives I just can't get past. I try them every year, and I just...
At first, I couldn't think of anything, and then when I started, thinking about it, more things poured out. I was like, remember those candies, Warheads, from when you were kids?
Those are so sour.
They're super
Well,
sour. And then I was like, horseradish, ew. I know. You like it. You like
I
it.
do. I like it all. That's okay, though. We all like different things. Children, thanks for joining us for the beginning of worship. You can head on upstairs for Kids Creek now with your Kids Creek teachers. I see Star and Alana out there, so enjoy Kids Creek. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on our Facebook and YouTube page so that you can get notifications when we go live and we can stay connected with you.
All right.
And Nancy,
yes, the connection card.
It's
It's
a big
right
one.
here. You can do the QR code, but this is way more cool. So fill out the front of this, but hang on to it because Carol is going to be talking about some things on the back here as we get to the end.
That's
If
right.
you are a first-time guest, be sure to use your connection card. We have a free book for you. You'll get through this by Max Lucado. I've read this more than once, and I'm still getting through stuff. So
yeah, I
enjoy.
think that's constant, right? This week we have a selfie snapshot of the week. Teresa Miller quoted Tiffany Norde during worship last week when she said practice makes progress, and we thought that was such a cool shout out we decided to share it as our snapshot selfie of the week. So if you're here with us today, or if you're celebrating with your mom today, take out your phone, take a selfie, tag us at #SCCMI so we can see how you're celebrating. We can all celebrate together today. And our message today on bitterness, when bitterness takes over, begins with this.
I love this time of year. Spring is finally here, the plants are growing, everything smells fresh. It just makes me happy. But have you noticed that the whole world seems a little angry these days? People are angry with government officials. Government officials, they're angry with each other. Workers, they're angry with their employers, and they're quitting their jobs at record rates. Drivers, well, they're angry with each other. And the airlines, they're experiencing the increase of unruly passengers. People were angry because they had to wear masks, and now they're angry because we don't have to wear them on a plane. Well, retail workers, they're being abused by customers. And sadly, in the past 2 years, there's been a 66% increase in mass shootings. Over Easter weekend alone, there were 3 mass shootings. It almost feels like anger and bitterness within humanity is a whole entirely different pandemic that we're now facing. Hi, I'm Nancy Dietrich, a partner with Sycamore Creek and a volunteer on the teaching team. And we're in the series No Offense, and today we're exploring what happens when bitterness takes over. Now, it's Mother's Day today, and for some, it's a day full of love and joy. For others, it's a source of anger and bitterness. So what exactly is bitterness, and how does it get started? Well, I'll share a fancy definition from Psychology Today with you. So all bitterness starts out as hurt, and your emotional pain may well relate to viewing whomever or whatever provoked this hurt as having malicious intent. When we feel that someone did something on purpose, we feel offended, and the article goes on to say anger and resentment is what we're likely to experience whenever we conclude that another has seriously abused us. This feeling of being abused leads to some very strong emotions that can have a very negative impact. Left to fester, that righteous anger eventually becomes the corrosive ulcer that is bitterness. Now that's some pretty heavy stuff to unpack. Let's try a simple cooking analogy to help us make sense of this. Here's the secret recipe for bitterness. 1 cup of hurt, add a cup of malicious intent, and then heat to a bubbling boil of anger and resentment. Simmer until the mixture becomes the bitterness, and pour the bitterness over everyone who caused pain. Now the key takeaway is that hurt can lead to bitterness, especially when we perceive that the person who hurt us did it intentionally. Now the problem is that bitterness that's left unchecked can now grow deeper and deeper and rob us of the life God desires for us. Bitterness causes harm to ourselves, but it also causes harm to everyone around us. You might think of it like this. Bitterness acts like a ball and chain. Imagine being held in place with nothing to focus on but our bitterness. Eventually, we can become paralyzed with this emotional pain, which can also lead to physical conditions such as headaches and ulcers and high blood pressure. Now, bitterness can also act like a wrecking ball. We tend to draw others into our pain to punish them. Imagine twirling the wrecking ball all around us in an effort to take out everyone who is standing close to us. With bitterness, there are no winners. Everyone loses. There are all kinds of things that can trigger bitterness. Now, someone posts something on social media and that has our blood boiling. A loved one says something hurtful. A classmate starts a rumor. A coworker does something awful. It can even come from something small that's not really that serious.
Anything can start out as a seed of bitterness. It's like planting a garden. You take something small, you put it in the ground, you cover it with fertile soil, you water it, and it begins to grow. I remember back when I was in college, I shared a house with several roommates. We all got along pretty well at first, but eventually we ran into a major conflict. Guess what it was over? It was about doing chores. We had a plan, but people didn't follow it. We started getting angry with each other because someone didn't pick up after themselves. And then somebody used up all the dishes in the kitchen, made a really big mess, and they didn't clean up that mess. Soon we'd start thinking, you didn't do your chores, so I'm not cleaning the bathroom or buying groceries. Next thing you know, someone vented to another roommate, and that person told someone else, and before you know it, it was a feud that was erupting. While I was doing chores, I got frustrated and maybe a little mad. Maybe I started getting angry, started thinking that this person did it on purpose just to get under my skin. What started out as something irritating has now grown into something epic. That brings us to our first chat question. When has something irritating grown into something epic?
I'm sure we can all think of times where something small has grown into
Maybe a
something
little.
epic. Yeah. I have very similar stories to you, Nancy, where I had college roommates and there were pinches all over the place, broken expectations. And the main thing was that the expectation was never laid. Never laid. That happened so often in our relationships.
And it still happens no matter who I've lived with. Sorry, family. Yes, we all we all have those bumps, and it's just about those expectations that are not met.
I think it's inevitable. We all fall short of others' expectations, whether they're communicated or not.
That's what being human is, I think.
Yeah, we are not like Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually had a similar experience too. We had like a chore chart or whatever, and I was very involved in things in college. So like I did plays and musicals, and it was my week to do the dishes, and I hadn't gotten to it yet because I'd been really busy that week. It was like Tuesday. We switched on Sunday night. So it was Tuesday. I was like, chill. And my roommate was so upset that I didn't do the dishes. She put them in the bin, the bin that you can put in the sink, and like put them on my bed. I was so mad. I was like, give me a break, girl.
Right.
I'm busy.
Well, and how different would it have been if they had come to you and said, are you okay? Do you need help with this?
Yeah,
or something like that. Like, how we respond really matters, right?
On Facebook, Dwayne Dietrich said, I worked with a lady that could not accept change, even though the changes would have been a very positive thing for our students.
Ooh, yeah, that's rough.
People have a hard time with change.
They do, positive or negative.
I think, too, like, the things that my kids do irritate me And as they build and build, it gets so epic, and I'm like, end up screaming, and I'm like, what's wrong with me?
And then you feel absolutely terrible afterward because you're like, why did I blow up over that tiny thing?
Yeah, yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, I think all of us have moments like that.
Yeah.
I hope you have some insight to how we
Yes.
can handle it.
I will hope. Hopefully I do.
Hopefully. All right, well, let's
Hang in
find
there.
out.
Hang in there.
So maybe my example about doing chores seems really silly now, but it's a good example of how the seed of bitterness gets planted and begins to take root. We experience a hurt, a disappointment, an offense. These may be small offenses, they may be life-paralyzing offenses, such as a family member's abuse, a spouse's betrayal, a coworker or classmate's deception. What makes bitterness so tricky is that we may not even know that this offense has taken root. The seed is so small and hidden beneath the surface. We talked about how bitterness gets started, but how does it grow? Well, like any root, we have to feed it. And that's pretty easy because our culture today is one that celebrates bitterness and encourages us to broadcast it to everyone. Our lives revolve around this anger and resentment. We feel compelled to invite as many people as possible to join us. As they say, misery loves company, and we're going to invite everyone we know to the party. So social media makes it easier than ever to fan the flames. We've all been there. We feel angry and frustrated, so we vent about it to everyone. We post about who or what made us angry today. Someone posts something we take offense to, and we reply in the hopes of getting people on our side. And we don't always take the time to say it nicely. Jeff Bezos puts it this way: people lose their kindness gene behind a keyboard. Well, I bet some of you are bitter at the fact that I just quoted Jeff Bezos. Now, these types of actions serve to water the seed of bitterness so it can grow. Just like a virus, all this anger and bitterness we're feeling spreads to everyone we're in contact with. So how do we stop the spread? Here's what it says in the book of Hebrews. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. By making every effort to live in peace and being holy, we can begin to contain the spread of bitterness. You see, hatred and holiness cannot coexist in the same heart. So, when you fill the heart with peace and holiness, there's no room left for anger and hatred. It has the effect of starving the seed of bitterness so it can't grow. Now next it says, see to it that no one falls short on the grace of God and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. So isn't it interesting that the author of Hebrews uses this imagery of a root to talk about bitterness? So think about it. It's deep beneath the surface where nobody can see it. And how deep does it go? We won't know until we try to start killing it or try to start pulling it out. So think about an oak tree. What starts out as an acorn grows into a beautiful, strong tree. But what makes it so strong? Well, the root system. The root system of a mature oak tree can total hundreds of miles. The roots typically extend no more than 3 feet below the surface. But while oak trees are beautiful, their roots can cause a lot of damage if they're planted too close to a structure like houses, paved surfaces, and water pipes. Have you ever tried to get rid of something with deep roots? It's quite a process. We're heading into dandelion season. Talk about a weed with deep roots that spreads itself all over the neighborhood. I remember battling with a weird plant I used to call the beanstalk. I'd pull that thing out by the roots year after year, only to have it return taller and stronger than before. Now, one of my favorite memories was from a few years ago when my husband and we decided to get rid of some bushes in front of our house. Well, they looked fine 25 years ago when we planted them. But the problem was that these bushes kept growing. We kept trimming them, but they still managed to take over the front of our house. We finally decided it was time for them to go. We knew the roots would be deep, so we had a plan. It involved a truck and chains. After several attempts on the first bush, the chain broke. We went and bought heavier chains. We finally got the bush out, but we were lucky we didn't rip the trailer hitch off our friend's truck. Needless to say, the root balls on these bushes were huge. They had been growing beneath the surface unseen for years. And just like the roots of these bushes, what's beneath the surface of the soul that's left unchecked is slowly going to grow deeper and deeper and deeper. And these roots can grow underground, unseen, but they will eventually yield the visible fruit of bitterness. As you can probably imagine, it's much easier to prevent the seed of bitterness than it is to get rid of it once it takes root. Now that brings us to our next chat question. When have you struggled removing something that had a deep root?
Well, I have some convicting words from my therapist about this. So I have a post-traumatic stress disorder, but and I've been working on it with a wonderful therapist. And something she said that really struck me and really convicted me to continue to work on challenging myself a little bit at a time with compassion in mind was that you can get to a place where you're comfortable with your state of being and you continue to hurt yourself and you continue the systems that have hurt you within yourself even though you're not being hurt anymore. So the abuse has ended and you continue to behave in the same way and it harms your relationships because you can't fully open, you can't fully heal until you reconcile those things.
One thing I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
It's a pain a lot of people suffer with, and for you being able to put voice to it is amazing.
I know I'm not alone. Yeah.
And post-traumatic stress is a great example of something with really deep roots
When
that
it comes
you have to struggle
in
with.
so many forms. There are people who are traumatized by things that happen in our world, traumatized by things that happen in our lives, and it comes in so many forms. So many people can really struggle with that.
I think what first came to my mind when thinking about things that have deep roots was like the things that I believe about myself. I think that there are a lot of things that like I believe about myself because of things that happened in the past, and like they're not true. And so trying to like pull that out by the root instead of just pulling the top off, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I used to say, like, I'm not a morning person, and you told me once, Carola, don't say that about yourself. If you say it, it'll be true. And I was like, oh, you're right. So
the things you believe about yourself, your own self-image, can be distorted.
And my counselor said
Isn't it great to have a counselor?
Counselors are awesome.
Yay, counselors.
She said, like, you wouldn't beat yourself up about, like, having a runny nose if you have a cold. So why beat yourself up about things that are symptoms of other things like depression or PTSD?
Yeah.
Like,
That's so hard.
don't like punish yourself for something that's a symptom.
And then it gets cyclical because then you're like, oh, darn, I punished myself for something that was a symptom. Ah.
Yeah. It's a cycle.
More punished. Yeah.
That's it.
How can we love ourselves within that, right? Yeah. And love others. But, I think that's the first step.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's hard to remove those roots that go so deep down. Yeah. I would love to continue to hear what you have to say about it.
So we've talked about how the seed of hurt gets planted and begins to grow roots. Eventually, it blossoms into bitterness. But how does bitterness hurt us? So Stephen Diamond, he regards bitterness as one of the most destructive and toxic human emotions. So bitterness is like a wound that just won't heal. The more we replay the source of the pain in our minds, it begins to define who we are. Instead of becoming a victim of someone else's actions, we end up becoming a victim of ourselves. So what is the true cost of bitterness? Leon Seltzer sums it up this way. Bitterness prolongs our mental and emotional pain and can lead to anxiety and depression. It prevents us from experiencing potential joy. It interferes with cultivating healthy relationships, can lead us to acts of vindictiveness, robs us of vital energy, and erodes our sense of well-being. Well, that's a pretty big price tag. But I'd also like to talk about a couple of characteristics of bitterness that are important to know. The first thing is that bitterness is a hidden destroyer. Now, sometimes these roots of bitterness, we don't even know we have any until we wake up and can't stop thinking about that thing or that person. And some of us, we have bitterness towards the most ridiculous, dumb things, like my college roommates doing their chores. But some of us are dealing with life-paralyzing offenses that we just can't shake. The abuse we've endured, the betrayal of the loved one, being deceived by someone we trust. We go over and over in our minds, letting the roots sink deeper. When I was younger, something I really struggled with was when somebody would say something about me to someone and it would get back to me. Well, first, I'd feel hurt, and then I'd get mad. And the next thing, I'd try to figure out how to pay them back for this great injustice. I'd think of all kinds of ways I could make them as miserable as I was. Maybe I could start some rumors, but I didn't want anyone to know that they got under my skin. Or maybe I could give the person the stink eye or the silent treatment. The problem with that is people would just think I was being rude. That's not very helpful. I'd spend hours and hours thinking about the terrible wrong that was done to me. How this person went out of their way just to cause me pain. Remember, if we perceive that those actions were intentional, or worse yet, malicious, it ramps up the bitterness. We start to feel that we are a victim of a grave injustice. We've been wronged, and that causes us grief. Now, if you put the pot of bitterness on the stove to simmer, it turns into anger and resentment. This is what we're likely to experience whenever we conclude that another has seriously abused us. In fact, you may have experienced a hurt, a disappointment, an offense. You may not even know that an offense has taken root. That's why bitterness is often considered a hidden destroyer. But seldom do we find anyone who will admit that they are a bitter person. They will either deny it or disguise it. We can't heal from what we are unwilling to admit. So the bitterness acts like the silent but deadly disease. It poisons us. Now, the second thing that's important to understand is that bitterness always poisons others. Roots will never just stay in your yard. They will always spread into the neighbor's yard, just like the dandelions. But it also lashes out because we try to punish the offender. We want to do whatever we can to even the score and cause pain. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Here's how it really works. Bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping we'll kill the enemy. Who's the one really getting hurt? We are. Here's what author Machuan Tawago has to say. Bitterness is how we punish ourselves for other people's sins. Remember our verse from Hebrews? See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile the many. So, how exactly does bitterness hurt others? When we invite people into our bitterness, we are becoming a stumbling block to their pursuit of faith and peace. We also set them up to become bitter. Now, remember the cost of bitterness that we just talked about? We're spreading the seed of bitterness so they too can feel these effects. When bitterness is passed along, it can destroy a small group, divide a family, ruin a marriage, separate a church. If we notice that bitterness is affecting ourselves and others, what can we do to help contain the spread? Well, it usually starts with something simple, like an honest conversation with the person who caused you pain. Earlier in the series, we talked about the role renegotiation model. It suggests that many conflicts are about broken expectations, and that the sooner we address our concerns or our pinch with someone, the sooner we can work out a plan to avoid having the problem escalate into a crunch in the future. Now, sometimes these offenses are small, and sometimes they're life-paralyzing offenses, like a family member's abuse, a spouse's betrayal, a business partner's deception. When we feel bitter, we tend to lash out at others to punish them. In the effort to hurt others, we just end up hurting ourselves. In the end, remember, bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemy. So talk about this amongst yourselves or in the chat. What are some ways that bitterness might be harming those around you?
This one's big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A nice light topic we promised you
A
today.
nice light topic, like a refreshing gelato.
Yes. So, how does bitterness harm those around you?
Well, bitterness is one of the most toxic and destructive human emotions. I'm sorry.
Good quote. Great quote. Who's that from?
It's such a great quote.
No.
Yeah, this is... It, so you talk in your message about bitterness being very deep and prolonging. Do you think that bitterness is more harmful the longer it goes on?
Absolutely. And I think where it harms others is when we're carrying this intense burden and we're dumping it on somebody else. So if I am angry and venting to you all the time, you end up absorbing that emotion.
Yes.
And that's how it's going to affect you. And eventually, if I do that to you enough, you're going to probably walk away.
Yeah.
Or you may blow up, and then I'll be offended and hurt and start feeling bitter.
Well,
so
in the right way, I think, if I'm in the right posture, I might take
Yes.
some distance from you.
Right.
But then my spirit, my love for you would want to come back and renegotiate that, I think.
Yep. And that's the thing, is
That's
that
tough.
we're going to have those moments, but it's your willingness to understand what's going on and have the conversations that you need to have.
Well, and I think the longer it goes on, the harder it
Absolutely.
is to have the conversation.
Why didn't you tell me this 2 years ago?
Right.
And
And then it
feel
becomes
like-
something so much bigger than what it was.
I feel like bitterness makes us rough around the edges.
Ooh, yeah.
And so then, like, it's like a thing that we put on because we're trying to protect ourselves from being hurt. But then we end up, like, really hurting those around us because we're, like, snapping at them for something they didn't even have any role in,
Right.
you know?
Or they didn't intend or whatever.
Yeah.
Even the broken expectation that they didn't intend is still harmful,
We
but
act
that they can.
out much stronger than is called for.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like wrapping ourselves with something pokey and prickly, and then
Yeah.
people come up and want to hug us, and it just
They're like,
hurts.
Oh, yes. That's so
Absolutely.
true. That's
Yeah.
so true. Well, and you talk about that when you talk about trying to get back at other people because
Yeah.
they hurt you. You hurt me, now I'm gonna protect myself by hurting you back.
You deserve it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what we can do with that.
So we've explored how bitterness affects ourselves and others. So how do we kill the root of bitterness? What's the cure? The first one is pretty obvious, but it's important. We expose the root. We expose the object of our bitterness. And here's what the Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. That's right, expose them. Bring it out into the light. Name the thing that has wounded us and left us chronically paralyzed, with whom or what we are bitter about. Name the bitterness. So bitter at God because we lost a loved one to COVID. Bitter because a sibling seems to do no wrong. A coworker got the promotion we worked for. Bitter at the person who is now dating your ex. A spouse who never acknowledges you. To expose these roots, we need to acknowledge the source of bitterness. And when we start praying about why we are bitter, the discovery may surprise us. We may find that our bitterness has blinded us from recognizing our own role of responsibility in maintaining our bitterness. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that everything that happened was all our fault, but through prayer and reflection, we may come to understand the role we've been playing in keeping the flame alive. Again, the role renegotiation model can serve as a great path toward exposing the roots by acknowledging the source of bitterness with the person who caused harm. We can come up with a plan to resolve the conflict and avoid it in the future. So, what's next? Once we acknowledge why we are bitter, the next thing we need to do is to practice the art of forgiveness. Yep, that's right, it all comes down to forgiveness. Now, we all know that forgiveness is probably the hardest thing God calls on us to do. It's really hard to do, but it's an essential step in uprooting bitterness. Forgiveness is the ultimate cure for bitterness because it enables us to let go of the grief and resentment. So Leon Seltzer says that forgiveness is the single most potent antidote for the venomous desire of retributive justice poisoning your system. It all starts with the idea of canceling their debt. Jesus told a story in Matthew 18 where a servant owed an enormous debt to his master, and he went before the master, petrified that he was going to get thrown into prison or killed. And the master, in his grace, forgave all of his debt. And then he went out and he saw a fellow servant that owed him a fraction of what he had just been forgiven. And instead of reciprocating that grace, He had the servant thrown into debtor's prison until he paid it back. And this is what the master says in response. You wicked servant, he said, I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had the mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all that he owed. And Jesus said, this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. Are we going to choose to give up our claim to revenge and to blame? To stop saying, but hey, you don't know what they did to me. They deserve it. I have a righteous anger. I am entitled. Even Jesus got angry and turned over tables in the temple. Well, that's true. He did turn over the tables on that one day, just that one day. And every other day of the 1,277 days of his public ministry, he was an instrument of peace, a healer of the sick, a friend of the foreigner, a forgiver of sin. If we're trying to live into the teaching of Jesus, we need to cancel their debt. That's a really tough thing to do, and it goes against our human nature and the direction our culture tells us to go. So we need to look at it differently. Jesus says in the Gospel of Luke, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. That's right. In order to stamp out bitterness, we need to spread love and blessings to those who hurt us. Get rid of all the bitterness, the rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. Now, as we think about what Jesus is saying, it's important to remember that Jesus was a Jew, an oppressed minority living in a land ruled by an imperial power, the Roman Empire. Forgiveness isn't really about saying, oh, that's all right, we'll just forgive and forget. Forgiveness also doesn't mean we should just forgive the offense and stay in an unhealthy or abusive situation. Howard Thurman considers forgiveness to be a survival technique for the man with his back against the wall. Learning to forgive is what facilitates our recovery. It's how we move forward to pull out the roots of bitterness and let the wound begin to heal. Ultimately, the antidote to bitterness is forgiveness and love. In the end, it comes down to a choice. We can choose to give up our claim on revenge and blame. We can cut ourselves free of the ball and chain that paralyzes us. We can set aside the wrecking ball that destroys those around us. And when we choose to lay down our burden of bitterness, we can experience a new kind of freedom through God's grace and love. As we identify the source of bitterness, we can begin to neutralize the impact of resentment and envision a better future. By getting rid of bitterness, we can begin to see beautiful blossoms instead of destructive roots. Will you please pray with me to lay down the burdens of bitterness? God, we don't want bitterness to take over our lives. Please show us where an offense has taken root without us realizing it. Help us to expose the source of bitterness in our lives. Instead of canceling those who hurt us, help us cancel the bitterness we hold against them. Give us the strength to be compassionate and forgive others so that we can live in peace and foster love for one another. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So that leads us to our last chat question. What's one step you can take this week to let go of some bitterness in your life?
Nancy, I think you and I are going to have a bonfire.
I think so. We came up with a great thing. Do you want to tell them about it?
Yeah. So we were talking about just write down all the things you're bitter about, right? It might take a while. Might take a few pages. Yeah, it might take a whole journal.
Yes.
It might take a while. And we talked about that healthy practice of writing letters you don't intend to send, releasing it from your heart, and then putting it to the flame. Because if you're going to put one thing on the funeral pyre, let it be your bitterness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that idea because it seems so like releasing, so cathartic, and at the same time you can offer it up as a prayer, not to burn the other person who has hurt you or the situation in your heart, but to Jesus to bless them and to release this pain.
You know, Nancy, you said something during that last segment that really struck me about how you have to remove the bitterness so you could let the wound heal. And I was thinking, like, if you were to get shot, they, generally speaking, want to remove the bullet
Yes, that's a very important step.
before they then, like, close it up and
Well, you know
let it
why? Because
heal.
it can cause an infection
Yes, it could.
or
bitterness is-
poisoning.
Yeah, the infection,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you don't clean out the wound to start with, it can't start to heal.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And I think, again, forgiveness, it is so hard. It really is. But
That's next week,
where-
people.
Yes, that's next week. But in terms of the prayer and reflection and just, and you can't control what everybody else says and does, but how you react to it. That is what you have. And so at some point I just have to choose to lay that down so I can move forward. And it's not about the other people, it's where I have to start.
The Codependence Anonymous prayer ends with, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know that it's me.
Yeah.
Because as codependents, what do you want most is to change the other person.
Yeah.
How powerful to reflect inward and say, I can change me.
Yeah.
That's the only person I can control.
Aaron Umstead said, praying about it is the best first step.
Amen.
And then Sherry said, humanize the person, recognize that no one is perfect. We all make mistakes.
That's right. That's right. All right. Thank you, Nancy. Wow.
You're
I am
welcome.
I'll be honest with y'all, I was not sure about this whole series. I was immediately offended by this phrase, no offense. And every message has been convicting and powerful and life-changing.
Usually when someone says no offense, they follow it up with something offensive.
Right.
Don't be offended, but I am about to offend you.
But truly,
Exactly.
no offense, truly. Yes.
Yes, they hurt
That's
you
right.
and say no offense.
That's right. Exactly, because you can do no wrong so long as you just say no offense.
That's right.
We want to continue to connect with you this week, and here are some ways that you can do that.
Hi, dearie. Let me tell you all about what's going on at Sycamore Creek this week, okay? You're going to want to take a next step with this message, so head to sycamorecreekchurch.org/connect or scan the QR code to do that, okay? And you know what? For first-time guests, when you fill it out, you'll get a free book. You'll get Through This by Max Lucado. That's for you. So you know you've got to make new friends in the community and connect and grow and serve. And Group Link is the best way to do that. So join a small group. There are choices for everybody for every day of the week. So you can scan the QR code or go to sycamorecreekchurch.org/small groups. You kids and your newfangled devices, just join a group. You know what my favorite karaoke song is? Come to karaoke night in the cafe with community karaoke led by DJ Genesis. That's going to be May 20th in the Connection Cafe. So head on over there from 6 to 8 p.m. Maybe you'll hear me sing Total Eclipse of the Heart. You know someone in the community who's busy raising voices. Send us your nomination on the connection card or at Sycamore Creek's Facebook page. We'll partner with a charity in partnership with them on May 22nd during worship, so check it out with the Community Voice Amplifier Award. This Memorial Day Sunday, dearies, all Sycamore Creek campuses will be at Potter Park to worship in the Tiger's Den Pavilion at 10:30 a.m. We're bringing Willie D's Barbecue, an open mic with Alexis Rosado, and a DJ. So it's a party I'm sure you're not going to want to miss. Oh, you kids and your devices. You can download the Sycamore Creek app to stay connected by searching SCCMI on your mobile device. And thank you for your giving. We're heading back now to celebrate all the things your giving makes possible. You can give online by heading to sycamorecreekchurch.org/give or scanning the QR code. Okay, bye-bye now. This is your friendly neighborhood Midwestern mom wishing you a happy Mother's Day. Hi, dearie. Let me tell you.
So you really want to take a next step, right? Yeah, okay. So go ahead and fill that out.
That's one of my favorite personas, but did you notice at the end where like my voice was almost like my normal voice?
It's because you're a Midwestern mom.
Yeah, it's because I'm a Midwestern mom. So this week we are thanking for your partnership and giving with the Michigan Area United Methodist Camping, who's helped sponsor kids, particularly at our Potterville campus, who are going to camp this summer. So they put together a little video for us thanking you for all of that, your support.
My name is Anne, and I'm excited about camp because there's so much fun to do, and I get to meet new friends. Thank you for supporting me to going to camp.
My name is Caitlin, and I'm excited about camp because I get to be away from my sister. Thank you for supporting me in going to camp.
Hi, my name is Lillian, and I'm excited about going to camp because of all the new people that I meet and all the food. Thank you for supporting me going to camp.
Hi, I'm Naomi, and one thing I like about camp is the people.
My name is Patience. I'm excited about going to camp because I get to spend time with friends. Thank you for supporting me to go to camp.
We also partner with Dr. Mir in Nicaragua, and there are some updated pictures of those kids who are helping feed and provide medicine in Nicaragua. So thank you so much for your giving. That makes all of that possible. Well, friends, we have one more chat question and one more song for you. What did you get your mom or mother figure for Mother's Day today? You can chat in the comments or tell a friend next to you while we lead you in our last song, While You Were Holding Me.
was holding you while you were holding me. While you were holding me.
Mom, just wanted to say you forgot to remind me this Sunday is Mother's Day. Have you ever had to remind your kids about Mother's Day?
Maybe once or twice.
Yes, I think I reminded them about 3 times this morning. Excuse me, it's Mother's Day. You're supposed to listen to me.
I made sure to remind Pastor Tom on Friday. I was like, call your mom this weekend.
That's right.
You got to do that.
Okay.
Be helpful to the sons and daughters in your life. So what did you get your mom or mother figure for Mother's Day today?
Well, I went to spend the day with my mom, my husband, and I, and
Yes.
that was her gift. That is the most important. She doesn't want stuff, and she
Right.
just
Yes.
loves to spend the time. We got to spend the whole day with her.
I'm going to my mother's today for dinner, and I hope to bring her a little gift. So,
I found this really cute little jewelry dish, like that you put your rings or whatever in, for my mother-in-law. That said, like, that you didn't like give life to me, but I'm glad that life gave me you.
I love
She
it.
is
I
just
love it.
one of the most important people to me. And then I
Absolutely.
found these little towels for my stepmom that say "Best bonus mom ever."
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
I
So,
love it.
Yeah.
So next week we talk about that big thorn when forgiveness seems impossible with episode 5. So if you're feeling a little bitter, a little like you're not sure where to go this week, come back next week and watch with us. And until then, folks, be curious, be creative, and be compassionate. Peace out.